Appreciate you being here. I look forward to having another hearing. Thank you.
Senator Young.
Mr. Zuckerberg, thanks so much for being here and enduring the many questions today. I think it's important you're here because your social media platform happens to be the ubiquitous social media platform, and there's not a senator that you heard from today that isn't on Facebook, that doesn't communicate with our constituents through Facebook. In a sense, we have to be on it. And so I think it's especially important that you're here, not just for Facebook, but really for our country and beyond. The threshold question that continues to emerge here today is what are the reasonable expectations of privacy that users ought to have? And I'll tell you, my neighbors are unsatisfied by an answer to that question that involves, take a look at the user agreement. And I think there's been here about whether or not people actually read that user agreement. I would encourage you to, survey that, get all the information you can with respect to that, and make sure that user agreement is easy to understand and streamlined and so forth. Mr. Zuckerberg, earlier in today's hearing, you drew a distinction that I thought was interesting. It caught my attention. It was a distinction between consumer expectation of privacy depending upon whether they were on an ISP, or the pipes of the internet as you characterized it, or on an edge platform like Facebook. I find this distinction somewhat unsatisfying because most folks who use the internet just think of it as one place, if you will. They think of it as the internet as opposed to various places requiring different degrees of privacy. Could you speak to this issue and indicate whether you'd support a comprehensive privacy policy that applies in the same manner to all entities across the entire internet ecosystem?
Senator, sure. I think that people's expectations of how they use these different systems are different. Some apps are very lightweight, and you can fully encrypt the data going across them in a way that the app developer or the pipes in the ISP case probably shouldn't be able to see any of the content. And I think you probably should have a full expectation that no one is going to be introspecting or looking at that content.
Give me some quick examples, if you would, kindly, sir.
Sure. Well, when data is going over the Verizon network, I think it would be good for that to be as encrypted as possible, and such that Verizon wouldn't look at it, right? I think that that's what people expect, and I don't know that being able to look at the data is required to deliver their service. That's how WhatsApp works too. So that's an app. It's a very lightweight app. It doesn't require us to know a lot of information about you, so we can offer that with full encryption, and therefore we're not looking. We don't see the content. For a service like Facebook or Instagram, where you're sharing photos and then people want to access them from lots of different places. People kind of want to store that in a central place, so that way they can go access it from lots of different devices. In order to do that, we need to have an understanding of what that content is. So I think the expectations of what Facebook will have knowledge of versus what an ISP will have knowledge of are just different.
I think that needs to be clearly communicated to your users, and we'll leave it at that. Those different levels of privacy that the user can expect to enjoy when they're on your platform. I'd like to sort of take a different tack to internet privacy policy with you, sir. Might we create stronger privacy rights for consumers either through creating a stronger general property right regime online, say a new law that states unequivocally something that you said before, that users own their online data, or through stronger affirmative opt-in requirements on platforms like yours. Now, if we were to do that, would you need to retool your model if we were to adopt one of those two approaches?
Senator, can you repeat what the approaches are again?
Yeah, so one is to create a stronger property right for the individual online through a law that states unequivocally users own their data. The other one is a stronger affirmative opt-in requirement to be a user on Facebook. Would you have to fundamentally change the Facebook architecture to accommodate those policies?
Senator, those policies and the principles that you articulated are generally how we view our service already. So depending on the details of what the proposal actually ends up being, and the details do just matter a huge amount here, it's not clear that it would be a fundamental shift. But the details really matter, and if this is something you're considering or working on, we would love to follow up with you on this, because this is very important to get right.
I'd love to work with you. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Senator Thune has a closing comment. And I have a process statement for everybody to listen to.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thanks to all of our members for their patience. Been a long hearing, particularly long hearing for you, Mr. Zuckerberg. Thank you for sitting through this, but I think this is important. I do have a letter here from the Motion Picture Association of America that I want to get into the record without objection.
Without objections, ordered.
And just a quick sort of wrap-up question, if you will, and maybe one quick comment. But you've answered several questions today about efforts to keep bad actors, whether that's a terrorist group to a malicious foreign agent, off of your platform. You've also heard concerns about bias at Facebook, particularly bias against conservatives. And I just, as a final question, can you assure us that when you are improving tools to stop bad actors, that you will err on the side of protecting speech, especially political speech, from all different corners?
Senator, yes, that's our approach. If there is an imminent threat of harm, we're going to take a conservative position on that and make sure that we flag that and understand that more broadly. But overall, I want to make sure that we provide people with the most voice possible. I want the widest possible expression, and I don't want anyone at our company to make any decisions based on the political ideology of the content.
Okay. And just one final observation, Chairman Grassley. Mr. Zuckerberg has answered a lot of questions today, but there are also a lot of promises to follow up with some of our members. And sometimes on questions about Facebook practices that seem fairly straightforward, but I don't think we have. I think it's going to be hard for us to fashion solutions to solve some of this stuff until we have some of those answers. And you had indicated earlier that you're continuing to try and find out who among these other analytics companies may have had access to user data that they were able to use. And hopefully as you get those answers, you will be able to forward those to us. And it'll help shape our thinking in terms of where we go from here. So, but overall, I think it's a very informative hearing, Mr. Chairman, and so I'm ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't make this comment, but your response to him in regard to political speech, I won't identify the CEO I had a conversation with yesterday, but one of our platforms, and he admitted to being more left than right, or I mean being left, I guess is what he admitted, and I don't know, I'm not asking you what you are, but but just so you understand that that probably as liberals have a lot of concerns about you know, the leaning of Fox News, or conservatives have questions about the leaning of MSNBC, let's say. It seems to me that when we get, whether it's from the right or the left, so I'm speaking to you for your platform, there's a great deal of cynicism in American society about government generally. And then when there is suspicions, legitimate or not, that maybe you're playing it one way unfairly towards the other, it seemed to me that everything you can do to lean over backwards to make sure that you are fair in protecting political speech, right or left, that you ought to do it. And I'm not telling you how to do it, and I'm not saying you don't do it, but we got to do something to reduce this cynicism. At my town meetings in Iowa, I always get this question: how come you guys in D.C. can't get along? You know, meaning Republicans and Democrats. Well, I try to explain to them that they kind of get a obtuse what would you say, review of what goes on here, because controversy makes news. So if people are getting along, you never hear about that. So they get a distorted view of it. And really, we congressmen get along more than the public thinks. But these attitudes of the public, we got to change. And people of your position and your influence, you can do a lot to change this. Whether I know you got plenty of time to run your corporation, through your corporation or privately, anything you can do to reduce this cynicism, because we have a perfect constitution. Maybe it's not perfect, but we got a very good constitution, the longest one written constitution in the history of mankind. But if people don't have faith in the institutions of government, and then it's our responsibility to enhance that faith so they have less cynicism in us. You know, we don't have a very strong democracy just because we got a good constitution. So I hope that everybody will do whatever they can to help enhance respect for government, including speaking to myself. I got to bend over backwards to do what I can so I don't add to that cynicism. So sorry you had to listen to me. So this concludes today's hearing. Thanks to all the witnesses for attending. The record will be open for 14 days for the members to submit additional written questions and for the witness, Mr. Zuckerberg, to make any corrections to his testimony. The hearing is adjourned.